Where did this relationship start?
We fell in love as buddies.
Hi!
I don't want to die! Stop it!
Mark Duplass and Patrick Brice were two friends who liked weird people, weird human behavior, and My Dinner with Andre, a movie about two guys talking to each other.
This is the beginning of the rest of the future now, that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around.
It's pretty cool. It kind of feels like a podcast in 1981. They wanted to make a movie based on a weird relationship between two characters where they both would star in it and Patrick would direct. And when it came to a story, they both happened to be interested in weird Craigslist ads. Like this man who wants to go to the movies with a guy, but he must be fit, masculine, kind of chill, and under 27. Nothing sexual. Or this guy who has a haunted toilet. But specifically, a Craigslist adventure that goes wrong. Aaron sees an ad for a job requesting filming services that will pay $1,000 a day. So he goes to a remote cabin to film a man named Joseph.
The Disgusting Brothers.
Joseph says that he only has 2 months to live due to a brain tumor and wants to make a video diary for his unborn son. Unfortunately, Joseph is also a freak. He has a freak vibe, he's awkward and weird, and he does not care about personal space. Aaron stays to do the job despite Joseph getting progressively weirder throughout the day. He puts on this mask called Peach Fuzz and takes a bath with his unborn son. That shit is murky and must have piss and fart in it. This movie explores how people will not protect themselves to avoid being rude to someone. You're in a situation with a person who's a little off-putting, but you feel like you can't just walk away or tell them to fuck off because you feel like it would be mean. Aaron's life is potentially in danger here, but he stays partly because he has empathy for Joseph. He doesn't want to just reject the guy that potentially only has a few months to live. But he's also trying to fill a void. At the very least, I imagine he's lonely and seeking human interaction. When I first watched this movie, a while ago, I thought it was pretty good. And he's wearing this little biking fit, so you know he's got at least 3 pocket pussies in his possession. Wow. And one of my biggest takeaways was that Aaron is a fool. I get that he's a nice guy and is maybe drawn to weird people. And I get that $1,000 a day might make you act up a little. But when you start hearing...
When you saw that axe out front of the house, was there a small part of you that thought I might kill you with it?
It's like, alright. Joseph shows Aaron that he took several pictures of him before they met, and Aaron still doesn't leave. So I chalked up Aaron to being nice, but kind of stupid. A bit of a buffoon.
All right, we are,
Then I saw this.
In my opinion, the two protagonists of the film Creep are deeply disturbed people. There's something deeply wrong with them. I think the part of the joy of this film is who is the creep and how creepy is this going to get?
You know, you are pretty weird, aren't you? Once again, $1,000 is nice, but you went to a remote cabin to go film without having any information on the person you're seeing and without knowing what exactly you're filming. Like, I just know he wanted some freak shit to happen. He wanted to walk in the cabin and see a bottle of honey at his feet.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no, I really hope there's not an AI jerk machine. He's even like, hey, what if this is some 40-year-old woman?
waiting for some young boy to come up the hill and give rub downs.
How horny do you have to be to not only hope for, but say the word rub downs? How hard was he while filming this? What was the erection quality? For like the first 30 minutes, I think they're both little weirdos, but then it gets to a point where Aaron clearly wants to leave. He just wanted to have a little fun, but Joseph is psychotic. After forcing an escape and being terrorized by Joseph, Aaron agrees to meet with him at a lake to make amends. And he does one of the silliest things I've ever seen a character do. He records the meeting and sets his phone to dial 911. So he knows something bad could happen. Yet he sits on a bench facing the water and never turns around. How do you not turn around? How do you not feel him behind you?
Why didn't you at least
look behind you.
After watching Creep, I said that it was the most unsettling movie on Netflix. Had to get those delicious clicks. And while I still think it's pretty freaky, I actually think it does a great job of towing the line between horror and comedy. For every weird scene, I could see someone thinking it's quite unsettling, but could also see someone thinking it's hilarious. I feel like most of this movie is pretty arbitrary in terms of how you wrestle with it. And I think a large part of that is due to Mark Duplass's acting as Joseph. The movie pretty much hinges on his performance. I don't know how else to say it other than he's just really good at being awkward and, dare I say, creepy, and gradually increasing that throughout the movie in a way that nothing really ever feels abrupt, despite how weird it may be. But he also brings this charm and subtle humor to the role. It's really good. A lot of the dialogue is improvised.
We had a 5-page outline, essentially, that we were basing the whole thing off of.
Scenes with a little bit of a structure. Like, Joseph takes Aaron upstairs and says, you know, I want you to film me giving a tub to my unborn son because maybe he'll never get to see it.
But then once we got to that scene, it was just essentially me rolling the camera and Mark going with his performance.
Which creates this natural awkwardness in the interactions and makes everything feel more authentic. This movie pretty much has no blood and isn't even really scary in the traditional sense, but I think it's pretty refreshing in comparison to a lot of other found footage horrors, and dare I say, creepy. And that was it. Patrick and Mark had no plans of making a sequel, but Netflix came to them and said, hey, just so you know, a lot of people watched the movie. How many? Eat a dick. But if you want to make another one, we'll pay for it. And at some point after figuring out the ending for Creep, they realized that it was actually a really good, if not perfect, setup for a sequel.
And that was, ending the first movie with this, cupboard filled with VHS tapes.
Now, when you see these tapes for each of Joseph's victims, maybe you don't give a fuck. But maybe you wonder what's in those tapes. I guess it doesn't even really matter because they made the movie. Patrick Brice is back as director, Mark Duplass is back as a serial killer, and this time they wanted to try something a little different. In Creep 1, the movie's tension comes from us not knowing what Joseph is capable of. Like, he's weird and somewhat of a liar, but you don't know if he'll actually kill Aaron. Now that we know, the tension has to come from somewhere else.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to Encounters, the show where I look behind the strange world of online personal ads.
Sarah is running a web series that is struggling to gain traction. So much so that she contemplates quitting before coming across an ad that sounds all too familiar. A man needs a videographer and is willing to pay $1,000 a day. And there's not much else. This man is, of course, Joseph, who now goes by Aaron in honor of Aaron. Because he has several names in this series, I'm just going to refer to him as Joseph for simplicity. So Joseph immediately announces that he is a serial killer.
I am what is commonly known as a serial killer. I don't love that nomenclature.
And he wants Sarah to document him during his midlife crisis. The most prolific serial killer that no one knows about, who's also depressed. Sarah doesn't believe him, even after he shows her the tape of him killing Aaron, but she goes along for the ride anyway because she wants the content. I think this is a pretty interesting setup for a sequel and gives this movie a completely different dynamic from the first one. In Creep, Joseph is in complete control, and it always feels like Aaron is in danger. It's really just a matter of whether he'll die or not. Here, the tension comes from Sarah not taking Joseph seriously as a killer, while we know that he really is one. And her naivety makes for an interesting power dynamic. She thinks Joseph is a fraud, so she's never really that unsettled by anything he does. Plus, his insanity makes for a good episode.
Well, what if I told you that at the end of this road, I was going to cut off your head and snuggle fuck it?
Yeah, that was good. Keep going. The first movie had a cat and mouse situation, while this is more of a cat and cat situation. Desiree Akhavan, who plays Sarah, describes this movie as a psychological dick measuring contest between two sociopaths. And I think that's pretty accurate. It never really feels like Sarah is Joseph's victim. There's a constant power struggle. Joseph wants to make Sarah uncomfortable, and Sarah wants a compelling episode for her web series. There's times where it feels like whoever's holding the camera is in control, but the power dynamic never gets too unbalanced. Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass were interested in seeing Joseph meet his match, from general freakiness all the way down to size. Apparently, they wanted Sarah and Joseph to be similar in stature so that it would be believable that she could beat his ass. And I think choices like this paid off because once again, Sarah doesn't feel like a victim or like she's even in danger. Granted, Joseph does promise not to kill her for the first 24 hours that they're together, but he lies a lot, and after the grace period ends, their dynamic doesn't change. This movie is less super unsettling horror and more romantic comedy. Kinda. The suspense of Joseph being a killer is gone, but the movie leans into this and is pretty self-aware through its characters. Joseph talks about being a serial killer like he's an athlete at the end of his career and openly acknowledges his game.
I feel like I'm pretty fair to my victims. Like I try to give them a warning as to what they're walking into. I want them to know that I'm dangerous.
Sarah essentially serves as a stand-in for the audience. She calls out all of Joseph's weird serial killer behavior and even jokes about it because she thinks he's unserious.
Do you believe in God? It could complicate what you do for a living.
A lot of this movie is Joseph saying something demented and Sarah just thinking he's silly. It's like their way of flirting. He's being so honest about his profession, and her disbelief is so genuine that sometimes you forget that he actually is a serial killer. The dynamic is weirdly endearing. They're kind of perfect for each other. She had him in a hot tub getting whored out. Hand on neck, thumb on the patch in his beard. Look at his mouth. That shit is open as fuck. This is when you gotta say fuck it and just start peeing. Let's get a little disgusting, yeah? I would have said fuck it and just started pissing. So Joseph wants to end the documentary with both him and Sarah dying. He starts stabbing himself and Sarah's like, wait, I thought this was a bit. She manages to escape when Joseph, after thinking he knocked her out, makes the same mistake as Aaron in Creep 1 and doesn't look behind him.
Why didn't you at least look behind you?
And the movie ends with Sarah thinking she's safe on the subway before seeing Joseph. Mark Duplass and Patrick Brice's willingness to continue this franchise has always depended on the demand for it. Do people want more of this? The answer was yes, so they started working on Creep 3, but they're struggling.
We've been sort of racking our brains coming up with a third movie for a couple years now, and we had maybe 8 or 10 ideas.
They had ideas they thought were good, but not quite good enough for an hour and 20-minute movie. They'd have to stretch them out too much. They were also going into this project with an established audience, and were feeling the pressure of having to make something that matched the quality of the previous films. And while trying to come up with the perfect idea for a third film, they once again went back to the ending of the first movie.
It was actually Mark who called me and had the idea of the tapes, and basically that was it. That was as far as he got. He's like, we've got these videotapes that we see at the end of the first movie.
So they took a break from Creep 3 and made a 6-episode Shudder original series, with each episode being a tape for one of Joseph's victims. It also premiered on AMC Plus, which is actually pretty decent, but I refuse to pay for it because it's fucking AMC Plus. Like, what's next? Spike TV Plus? I'm gonna watch reruns of 1,000 Ways to Die? No. It's really not even that bad, but like, come on.
Check.
This guy Mike shows up to, you guessed it, a remote cabin in the woods. No! He sees signs to start filming before coming in, and all the lights are turned off.
On that fateful evening, I was not yet a killer. My thirst for blood was as if a small child.
You dog. He definitely just took a honey pack. There's just no way. He has the Dune popcorn bucket, and he drills that shit. And he boosted it to make it bite back. I said, baby, I'm a dog. Oh, my child heart's so sick. Kinky bastard. cosplaying as fucking Nosferatu. He saw the decrepit vampire dick and had to hop on the wave. Here, Joseph goes by Jeff Daniels, an aspiring actor who hires Mike to film a video for his acting school application. I think this is probably the perfect first episode for this show. It has everything that made the first movie what it was, and essentially reintroduces Mark Duplass's character. So you can watch it without having seen the movies. Joseph is doing his usual tricks. Goes for a hug, jump scare, nude, dramatic.
I'm feeling very vulnerable tonight.
And he pays someone $1,000 to film him. That is the first half of Creep 1. And like the first movie, it toes that line between horror and comedy. And I think having 2 movies with Joseph made me find this more funny. There's a point where Mike wants to leave.
I feel like we just had a breakthrough. I don't know.
Whoa, Mike. Wow. Before Joseph gets him to stay by giving him another $1,000. And the way he does a close-up on Mike with the money in the corner is so disrespectful. Like, bitch, you need this. You want some more money? Want to keep filming for me?
Didn't make Daddy a sandwich.
I wondered how it would be watching this knowing that the person filming was 100% gonna die, but I found myself getting interested in all the elaborate stories and characters that Joseph makes up, and how all that will lead to the kill. Like, he makes up this Jeff Daniels character, pays this guy $1,000 to come film his fake audition tapes, one of which is a scene from Misery, pays him another $1,000 to stay after he gets tired of the bullshit, and then pays him another $2,000 when he tries to leave again. This all leads to this very meta ending where Joseph is like, hey, for the scene we should play characters that are close to home. I'll play a strange guy who hired someone to come film his audition, and you'll play a struggling filmmaker who's a little annoyed and wants to leave as soon as possible with the money. He uses some of the same lines that he did with Aaron.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god, this is gonna be a good night.
Oh my god. This is gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
You have a really nice, kind face.
You know, you have a really nice, kind face.
He asks Mike if he thinks the axe that he has is weird. He even suggests that his character should just be a regular guy that you wouldn't expect to be a serial killer, who throughout the story drops hints that he might be capable of murder. Essentially saying, hey Mike, don't you think I'm kind of fucked? He's doing the serial killer thing while also being openly self-aware about it. At this point, we know Joseph's material, and they know that we know Joseph's material. But it's not like Creep 2 where the person filming is Joseph's equal. This is Creep 1, except now the ending is pretty much guaranteed. Mike's gonna die. And because we already know this, I think Mark Duplass's performance carries even more weight than it does in the movies. If you're not into what he's doing here, this probably won't work for you. But me, I love it. It's impressive how he not only carries the episode with his performance, but also has to hold the camera at times, improvise, and like the movies, there's barely any cuts, so he's got to think about the pacing of the dialogue, things like the literal speed at which he's talking, when to have moments of awkward silence, or when to abruptly shift the energy of his character. He has a good handle on how to keep these conversations alive and tense when they could easily get a little boring. Pretty much, he does a lot, and he's able to find that perfect balance between charming and deranged. I will never be able to look at him the same. I'll see clips of him talking about self-financing indie films or his general philosophy when it comes to making movies, and it's good, interesting stuff, but that is literally a sociopath. Jimmy Kimmel is interviewing a serial killer, and that's just a credit to his performance. The episode ends with Joseph making it very clear to Mike that he's a serial killer in a pretty cool way. He tells Mike that his axe is rubber, to which Mike confirms by only touching the handle. But Joseph also rubbed the blade across his hand to prove it wasn't real. So if it was, there would be blood on his hand. Oh, it was his left hand.
High five.
And Joseph kills him.
You got it.
So the first 4 episodes all have a pretty similar structure. Joseph gets someone who's down on their luck to record him doing some weird shit. He jerks them around, they make questionable decisions, and he kills them. Violent Nathan for you. In episode 2, a bird watcher named Elliot goes to this place to find a special bird because this guy named Sky Shark Mark 92 told him he could find it here. Joseph plays a guy who runs into Elliot after being in a skydiving accident, and he wants Elliot to help him film a testimonial so that he can sue Cloudaholic Skydiving, the skydiving company. This is the first time we see Joseph exclusively outside. In episode 3, Joseph plays a priest, Father Tom Durkin, and his backstory is that when he was a troubled teen fighting a lot of demons, this priest, Father Dom Gherkin, died while helping him exorcise those demons. So he decided to honor him by becoming Father Tom Durkin. He hires Jeremy, who runs a show called Gotcha, where he exposes things. Like Big Pharma, I guess?
Last week, we exposed the toxic wasteland hypocrisy that is Big Pharma.
It's like not good. Jeremy thinks that he's tricked Father Tom Durkin into agreeing to an interview, when really he plans to make him answer for the sins of the church. This is the most dickhead version of Joseph.
Do ye not have faith that the Lord thy God will protect ye from the forces of evil? Mommy loves her juice!
He exorcises demons using this Alpine X 2200 calorie buster. In episode 4, Joseph hires Brad, a true crime filmmaker who's past his prime, to film a documentary. But when Brad shows up, Joseph is like, here's these dead bodies, figure out what happened. And he edits the footage from his hidden cameras to make it look like Brad is the killer. Every episode is so ridiculous. It's great. I think expanding the series/franchise this way makes perfect sense because there's probably a bunch of ideas that maybe couldn't carry an entire third movie, but make for pretty interesting short films. These first 4 episodes are absurd and show us just how insane Joseph can be. And this isn't even as weird as it gets. In this episode, we get a look into the mind of Joseph as he goes insane over his victim Brant being late to their meetup. What were they going to do in a hotel room? Dry hump. Joseph is struggling with the codependent relationship he has with Peach Fuzz, his darker side that he feels is holding him back. He wants to go solo with the whole serial killer thing.
Why are you here?
In a fit of rage, Joseph throws Peach Fuzz off the balcony, who later returns with a body. The two sit on the bed facing each other. Joseph got Peach Fuzz his favorite, P.F. Chang's, because Peach Fuzz Chang's. He tries to talk about their toxic relationship. He takes responsibility for some of the recent tension and wants to compromise. Alright, mature. But Peach Fuzz is like, fuck that, and grinds his hips. And they're fighting. Later on, Joseph attacks Peach Fuzz in the bed, but just the head this time. It's pretty chaotic. There's a point where the lights go out and the closet door appears to close on its own, but it's actually Peach Fuzz. Yeah, I don't know. While in the closet, he reveals that he and Joseph are soul brothers. Remember when we used to breastfeed together? You on the right, me on the left, holding hands, suckling? That's exactly what he says. He then knocks Joseph out with an axe and ties him up in the bathtub. Now at first I was thinking that maybe Peach Fuzz is supernatural or that this was just Joseph's hallucinations that we're seeing, but then I figured he probably just freaked out after Brant didn't show up and made a short film out of boredom. We know that he loves movies.
Have you ever seen the film My Life?
Are you a fan of Interview with a Vampire? Like,
God's not dead, and my dinner with Andre?
I love movies so much.
And treats all of these tapes like short films. So I could just see him really getting on his editing shit with this one. In all of the scenes where he and Peach Fuzz can both be seen, he filmed himself on different sides of the frame, as himself and with the mask on, and then overlaid and cropped the clips to make it look like one shot. And this holds up for the most part, but there is the scene where the lights cut out, and then the one where Joseph is tied up in the tub. I can't explain the water turning on and off. Unless the handle happens to be where his feet are, but that feels like a stretch. The other non-supernatural possibility is that he just has another guy helping him. There was a random person that showed up to the wrong hotel room.
Harry P? I have the wrong room, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he's trying to be on some filthy shit tonight. However, this doesn't look like it would be him. But also, this episode is a look into Joseph's fragmented mind, and we see that he views Peach Fuzz as a separate thing from himself. I feel like there's a Severance joke there. So maybe this is some Tyler Durden shit, and this whole tape is just his point of view. Pretty much, I don't fucking know. Brant finally shows up, and Joseph easily slips out of the rope, confirming that this is all staged, and reunites with Peach Fuzz to kill him. In the final episode of Season 1, we get what is probably the most definitive evidence of Joseph's upbringing, and why he's like this. After killing some guy in his trunk, he goes to visit his mom. Now, as you might imagine, this is a very unusual mother-son relationship. Joseph stalks her from outside her house, and even walks in with a knife. But similar to how it was with Sarah in Creep 2, Joseph's mom matches his weirdness. So it doesn't feel like he's in control, and he's a lot more vulnerable. We see his mom get under his skin, and he has a tantrum when his room looks different than he remembers. And things get even worse when his mom's boyfriend Albert shows up. Joseph is so disgusted by this that he decides to get naked and put his head in a hot tub with his ass poking out. He's so free. At first I was hating, but that crispy nighttime air would probably feel incredible on your gooch and ass. He probably shits like a fucking horse. So Joseph is just fucking around here. It's a prank. But he is definitely bothered by Albert being with his mom. At dinner, he asks about the nature of their relationship. After finding out that Albert sleeps in his old room due to his sleep apnea, Joseph is like, oh, he sleeps in my special bed? What are y'all doing there anyways? And his mom is like, everything. We do fun, kinky shit in your bed. All we do is make a mess in your special bed. Sex in your special bed.
So don't ask me anything about what he does to my breasts.
He talks to them and laughs at them like this. Joseph thinks that this is crossing the line because his mother's breasts are sacred to him. He claims that his mother breastfed him for 6 years and made him addicted.
I never did. You were too aggressive. You made me bleed, okay? I couldn't breastfeed you.
It's here we see that Joseph tends to misremember many parts of his childhood. And this happens a few times in the episode. He forgot that he ripped open his baby wolf toy when he was younger, which I think he sends to Aaron in Creep 1. And he even gets his life confused with the plot of Forrest Gump. This just confirms that you never know when he's telling the truth. He doesn't even know. Things get rather awkward at dinner, so Albert offers to fix Joseph's car, where he finds the body of the person Joseph killed earlier. Why does he look tough? Albert tries to tell Joseph's mom before getting killed by him. And his mom doesn't like that this happened, but she's not like shocked or anything. So clearly she knows about Joseph's profession and doesn't even seem disturbed by it. Then, while burying Albert, Joseph is a little distraught that he was never properly breastfed by his mother. He asks if it's too late for them, while staring intently at her breasts. And, he starts suckling. And that's the end of Season 1. So we're given probably the most backstory we've ever gotten for Joseph. Essentially, this episode tells us that his mother is fucked, and that certainly doesn't help. It's no elaborate reasoning for why he is who he is, but I don't really think that was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, we want to do this as long as we possibly can. So I think giving out definitive answers is something that, we're trying to pace ourselves with.
And I honestly wonder if they even have a full backstory for him. Either way, I like the idea of lore being revealed through these little tapes. You know what? I like this show. I like the theme song. I like Joseph's mom.
I made your cheddar biscuits, dear.
I like this weird shit. I like the callbacks. Mark Duplass is a fucking animal. And maybe making these tapes will help them figure out the perfect idea for a third movie. Thank you so much for watching.